The Early Weigh-In podcast is back this Saturday, UFC Vegas 88. Back at the Apex for a heavyweight showdown. In our main event, we got Tuivasa taking on Marcin Tybura, 5-rounder there. And then in co-main event at 170, tough winner Bryan Battle taking on Ange Loosa. Two really good fights for us. Not a lot of big name value on this card, but it's oftentimes these are the ones that fly under the radar, produce a lot of finishes. Excited to watch the fight Saturday. Excited to quickly break them down with you as always. Before we get started, let you recap what was another negative night from us both. Looking to get back on track this week.
Yeah, I think that we've both kind of planted our flag on we'd much rather a kind of a crap event, a filler event, if you will, than no event at all. You know, we're fight fans at the end of the day, 100%. And this at least gives us some pretty decent spots to bet. You touched on the fact that both of us had a losing night. Our only straight bet that hit for the both of us was Dustin Poirier at plus 190. Looked sketchy there a little bit at first, but he, showed his durability once again and came out showing us that he's still, not necessarily a gatekeeper, but he is in that upper echelon of 155, and rightfully so, even at, his age, his experience level, and being there for so long. You had your only parlay of the night hit with Gamrot and Almabayev. Both of those guys, outside of a couple of sketch moments, both of those guys covered their price tag. They looked like the much better MMA fighters who profited a little over a unit there. We were both on this next one, Vera scorecards, no action at plus money. We knew that he was durable. That knee was insane, dude. Like the fact that he was able to take that is absolutely insane. But we did expect that he was going to get hit and get hit a lot. But by no means was he to the point where I was really worried about him getting finished. Even when he took that shot, his recovery time and everything proved to us that he was durable, and that ended up being just a void. I certainly wish we could have gotten on the Sean O'Malley side after seeing how much better he was, how much of a favorite he should have been after the fact. But a good fight nonetheless, and glad to see Sean kind of get that one and only loss on his record back. I think he needed that to move forward, and so I'm glad the UFC put it together. Della Maddalena and Gilbert Burns under 2.5. You missed that just barely, dude. I know you say you've gotten burned on that a few times this year.
I have, man.
That's tough, dude, but you're already paying a little bit of juice for the under 2.5. I'm sure the fight doesn't go the distance. Was getting north of minus 200, and that's also pretty tough to lay whenever you got a fight like that. Chuk plus 3.5. Honestly, I think that's a good play. That hits most of the time. I think it was just her mindset. I think when you made that play, you hadn't seen the interview yet. I don't know, dude. She had a lot going on in that fight. I didn't expect much, and she kind of showed that I think she was just trying to get her mind right. Both of us, big plays on fight starts round 3 in the Poirier Saint Denis fight. Another one where it's like we just needed a minute 15 longer, and that would have been an awesome play to hit. Minus 120. We thought we were getting a good line there, but just wasn't the play. Violence was the answer. The theme of the card this past Saturday. Jailton Jr. versus Curtis Blades. Jailton was able to get him to the ground. I thought that if he was able to get him to the ground, that he was going to make some quick work of Curtis Blades, but Curtis made him work and then caught him in a compromising position. I don't know, plus 350 to Junior's most likely path to victory, knowing that Curtis Blades has a pretty solid gas tank. I didn't hate those odds at all. You ended minus 2.65 units, and a forgettable night for sure. Looking over at my card, let's see, 1 for 4 on my straight picks. Took a couple of shots. Dustin Poirier, we already talked about. Kevin Holland versus Michael Page. Looking back on it, that was not the right move, having to lay juice on it. But I thought that Holland had the tools, but Michael Venom Page a little bit faster than I was expecting, to be honest with you. I knew he was fast, but I thought that he was kind of getting up there at age, and showed that he could do a little something in the division. I think that there's some really fun fights for him. Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della. Had 2 units on Gilbert. He was up 2018 on 2 of the judges' scorecards in that third round. Tough loss for sure. I'd play it again. I'm actually looking to fade Jack Della Maddalena for sure in his next fight. That's going to be kind of something that I'm going to have trouble getting away from in the future. I don't think he's that good, but he certainly showed that he can stay in it for 15 minutes. So props to him. Song Yadong versus Peter Yan. The line really started moving towards the fight, and I got plus 125 and what I kind of saw as a coin flip fight. It was a close fight for sure, but
1-1 going into the third.
1-1 going into the third, and I had plus money. That's what I kept telling myself, but ultimately, it was not a winner, so bad bet. Pedro Munoz versus Kyler Phillips. Kyler Phillips, I think this, post USADA era might be Kyler Phillips' season, dude. He looked really, really good and didn't slow down at all. So props to him again. The Vera scorecard's no action, and then the big 3-unit loss on Fight Starts round 3 and the Poirier Saint Denis, minus 7.6 units, and we are very close to even money on the year. We are still profitable, I think, the both of us, but it is, we're cutting it close. We need to turn this corner for sure in this next few fight cards. Let's see. We start off the night in the bantamweight division where we see Chad Anheliger taking on Charalampos Grigoriu. Don't have much for this fight. I know that Anheliger sits as a dog right now. I kind of like those odds, and maybe it'll continue to creep up. He's coming off of 2 back-to-back losses against Alateng Haley and Jose Johnson. I don't think that Anheliger is the best by any means, but I'm not entirely impressed with Grigoriu at this point in his career. I think he's got to show me a little bit more before I bet him. From what I've seen, Grigoriu hasn't really impressed me with his movement or his speed. I think we talked a little bit about that before starting the pod, but his speed is not there, where I do think that Anheliger has a slight athletic advantage here. I think that this is a very winnable fight, and the fact that we can get dog odds on him, I lean towards Anheliger. Not a lot of conviction on that, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, no, I don't have the clearest read on this fight, truth be told. When I originally looked at it, like first glance, I thought Charalampos might be the side. Minus 185 started to creep up into like the minus 200, minus 210 range. Now we see it down below minus 160 on some books. So Chad's popular underdog this week. Hands down, without a doubt, Chad's definitely fought the tougher competition here, but the guy's 37 years old at this point. I think his submission defense is bad. His grappling defense in general, very bad. The guy's been dominated pillar to post last 6 rounds from Alateng Haley and Jose Johnson, and actually was on Alateng Haley and Jose Johnson, and even took a small shot on Jesse Strader at like plus 230, who went out and won the first round with grappling against Chad Anheliger. So, Anheliger's kind of a guy that I've exploited. I've faded in the past. I see holes in his game. So it's hard for me to kind of jump off the band here and want to play him as a dog, because I have seen holes that make me want to fade him in the past. But on the side of Grigoriu, I think he's younger, he's more durable. But as far as skill for skill, I think it's a pretty close fight. I know he trains out of a good camp with Aljo and Marab and them up at Serra-Longo. So I think if there's a grappling game plan put here, Charalampos could come out here and look like a big favorite. But being a dog to Cameron Smotherman, and then, now almost a 2-1 favorite in his first UFC fight. It's just one of those where I kind of want to sit back, see how he performs before I go lay the chalk on him, Then we're moving on. 115, Cory McKenna versus Jacqueline Amorim. A lot of love this week for someone who's lost to Elise Reed, in my opinion, man. She horrible fight IQ in that fight, like pretty much refusing to get the fight to the ground, I think, until the third round. I think it's the end of round 2. She sits down in her corner, and her corner's telling her that she won that round and that she's up. She's down 2-0 on the scorecards. I did not like seeing that whatsoever. I think Cory McKenna does have the better stand-up here, but I don't think she runs away with this fight if it's on the feet. Her reach, very, very small. I think Jacqueline's going to look like the bigger girl here. It is the cardio that I think could be her biggest advantage down the stretch. But, man, when I see a girl with the grappling skills of Jacqueline Amorim sitting at plus money, that's the style I like to back, man. I know she's going to go out there and shoot her takedowns, and I don't think there's very many girls that can compete with her on the mat. And that's just truth be told. I hate I hate seeing, the cardio dump against Sam Hughes, but at the same time, there's a world where she finishes Sam Hughes in round one, with that choke, and we don't even see that cardio dump. And, I've seen Cory McKenna in compromised positions with Kay Hansen, particularly the back take, the body triangle. I don't know, man. I'm kind of looking at the plus money. I don't totally get the love for Cory McKenna this week. What's your thoughts on it?
I actually like the Amorim side as well. I think that McKenna has somewhat of a cult following. They really like backing her for whatever reason. And I don't think it's necessarily justified. I think because she entered the UFC so early, there's a lot of expectation that she's going to fill those gaps in her game. But, one of her biggest gaps in her game, I think that she can't fix, and it's that she's a little undersized for the division. She in this matchup might have a physicality advantage, but she's still rather small, and with her wrestling being something that she can utilize in a lot of fights, it's not great that she's so small. It's hard to hold girls down. Amorim, we've seen her as a huge favorite in the UFC, and to be honest with you, with her finishing Ruiz in that last one as a minus 300, I thought that we'd be coming into this one with an opportunity to fade her, but it seems like the line has completely corrected itself. She's moved into the underdog position at this point for the first time in her UFC career. And, as much as I wanted to fade her in the future after the Ruiz win, it does seem like a spot where we're given a playable line in a girl who I don't think had a justified line at any point in her UFC career. So, yeah, I kind of lean the Amorim side as well. It's women's MMA, and I know at the end of the day, holding a plus money ticket is going to make you feel a lot better. So I have to agree with you at this point with the line movement. I like Amorim because I can't see a dominant win for McKenna here. I think that it's going to be a close fight regardless, so I'd much rather be holding plus money.
Yeah, I agree.
We move to the featherweight division. Josh Culibao taking on Danny Silva. Danny Silva is coming off of his Contender Series win over Angel Pacheco. Looks good, dude. Young, 27 years old. Looks like he's got a good gas tank. Looks like he's, extremely fit. Josh Culibao, he's somebody who I've cashed on a couple of times in the past. I even tried to play him against Lerone Murphy last time, and that didn't look good, But, it's hard to – I do think that this is a little bit of an overcorrection. We saw Culibao I guess the line's kind of getting out of hand at this point. Yeah, okay. So I think Danny Silva has just as good of a shot as anybody. Culibao doesn't really win dominantly. Unless he can really implement his grappling, and I'm not so sure that he's going to be able to do that against Danny Silva here. If Danny Silva is able to get off some of his power shots, I think that Culibao has shown like some soft body tendencies, and I think that Danny Silva could take advantage of that. But it's all kind of a question on whether or not Culibao is going to be able to implement that grappling, the defensive grappling, if Silva decides to shoot. So it's a dog or pass situation for me. I don't really like playing Culibao at these odds. I like him at dog odds.
Yeah, man. You're pretty much going to hear the exact same thing from me. I think this is a pretty good scrap, man. Both these guys are pretty durable. I think it's a fight kind of flying under the radar, but I don't have the clearest read on this one either. I do kind of feel dog or pass is the way to go. For Culibao, the number one thing that kind of stood out to me is this will be his 7th UFC fight. Not a road of easy opponents either, man. Look, Charles Jourdain, Jalen Turner, Lerone Murphy, Seungwon Choi, even Melsik Bagdasarian. I mean, no easy task whatsoever. This is going to probably, in my eyes, be his easiest UFC fight to date. And I do think what determines his win condition, how much he's going to be a favorite here, is if he does mix in the grappling. I do see a bit of a grappling edge there for him. My issue is the volume. The guy's just doesn't do too much, Like you said, he's a guy that you kind of want to back as a dog, but you don't really want to lay juice on Josh Culibao. I saw a tweet where someone put that Danny Silva landed more strikes in his contender series fight than Josh Culibao had in his entire UFC career. So I had to fact check that, and sure enough, it is the truth, man. The volume's just not been there for Josh Culibao. Silva over 200. I think it was 205 strikes he landed, multiple knockdowns, takedowns. It's the things that you like to see. I do believe he's had a great gym in Extreme Couture, getting better. So, yeah, I think I'm going to pick Josh Culibao, but I do feel like there's not much value on him sitting at close to minus 200. So I feel like it's dog or pass as well, but not a strong conviction on either side here. We're taking a step up to the lightweight division where we see Thiago Moises taking on short notice replacement Mitch Ramirez. The line's starting to move. Thiago Moises opened at minus 350, which is just over 75%, and I do feel like that's probably closer to like an 85% here, which is kind of where the line's gotten to at this point. I don't see a lot of minute winning ability, a lot of process from Mitch. I do consider him to kind of be a front loaded brawler. A lot of his wins coming early, a lot of them by KO. And I just feel like that, if he's not going to find that on Thiago Moises, Thiago's got him covered everywhere, man. The cardio, full camp, especially in the grappling as well, man. I feel like if Thiago were to get this fight down, likely see him submit Mitch Ramirez on Saturday. So I am going to go Thiago Moises. I don't know if inside the distance is the play because Mitch is a tough dude. Dude's been to prison, he's a tough dude, hard to put away. So I feel like Moises is going to win. I just don't have the clearest read on if he's going to finish him, truth be told, or if it's going to be a decision.
So I see it a little bit differently, especially at these odds. I think that Mitch, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I think that he was training for a fight already whenever he accepted this. So I do think that he's coming in fight ready. I actually have a history with him. I bet him against Carlos Prates in the Contender Series. That didn't work out for me, but I do see something that I like in Mitch Ramirez, a lot of finishing upside. And when I think back about Thiago Moises, again, it's not a fighter that I love backing at favorite odds. He doesn't have the best body language in there. We've seen him overwhelmed in the past, especially against fast starters. And I think that would be a worry for me laying this type of price tag on Thiago Moises. I look back at some of the wins and, since the Islam Makhachev loss in 21, I haven't really seen the best version of Thiago Moises. He beat Melky Costa, who we've kind of, seen it's not aging the best. Christoph Thiagos, he has one good round. And to be honest with you, that's a perfect stylistic matchup for Thiago Moises. It's the Yoel Alvarez fight, which Yoel has a huge size advantage on a lot of fighters. And he caught him early, but it's just I think Mitch Ramirez is going to have something for Thiago Moises early. And if he can withstand that, then I do think that he's the favorite. But I think that it's going to be a little bit of a scary fight early.
I like it.
Moving on to the flyweight division, Ode Osbourne taking on Jafel Filho. Filho, you knew as soon as he came into the Muhammad Mokaev fight and almost submitted him that you were rarely going to get, or if ever going to get, a good number on him. Mm-hmm. I feel like we're still seeing evidence of that here. Let's see. The Danny Barres fight is actually pretty impressive. I hold Barres pretty highly, and to see him just kind of walk through him like that, it's rather impressive. I think that he needed to follow up his performance with Mokaev with a dominant win like that. But as far as whether or not he's deserving of a 2-1-ish favorite over Ode Osbourne, who's been a UFC staple, I'm not sure how many fights Ode has in the UFC, but he's going on his 4th, 5th year here. I think that he's a great test for Filho at this point, but I still haven't seen enough of Filho's all-around game to be able to bet him right here.
Feel a little bit different. I like João Filho here against Ode Osbourne. Tempted to try to find a way to play him. That Danny Barres fight, man, extreme toughness, got hurt to the body, and those are like when you get knocked out, you don't have a choice. When you get rocked to the body, a lot of times you're covering up and finishing and getting finished. And I mean, Danny Barres led him back to the feet, but Filho didn't quit on himself, man. He was, he got dropped a couple times with a body shot, and I like to see him not quit on himself. And as soon as he got the fight into his game, put his pressure and his ground game on, it was over quick, man. And I do feel like that pressure and that submission game, owner of 9 submission wins, I think that's things that O'Day really, really struggles with. Since coming down to flyweight, I think he's shown us time and time again that he struggles with much of a gas tank after round 1. The Sioux fight, he's pretty much cooked after 1, just like truth be told, man. I thought he really quit on himself in round 2. You see the Charles Johnson fight, cardio doesn't look good. The guy's been submitted multiple times in his career, I think 3 times now. And I don't think he's the most durable guy in general. He's been knocked out a couple times as well. He's been finished in 5 of his 6 losses. And I just feel like the gap in cardio and the gap on the mat in terms of submission grappling far outweighs the advantage that O'Day Osbourne is going to have on the feet here, at least early in this fight. I really do think a round 2-3 submission for Filho is super live and probably something I'm going to find myself on this week. Another fight that I am tempted to bet here in the women's bantamweight division, we got Josiane Nunes taking on Chelsea Chandler. Chelsea Chandler was just lined at a pick'em to Stoliarenko and Norma Dumont, and now she sits as the underdog to a girl that I think's inferior to both Stoliarenko and Dumont. I think Dumont and Stoliarenko both would kind of honestly run through Josiane Nunes. I feel like she's a girl who's kind of lucky to have found herself at 3-0 in the UFC. She's fought Bea Malecki. She got a Zion firing treatment, a girl who's literally like a 500 or losing record fighter. She's got power for the division. She does have an aspect that a lot of girls don't have. But I'm just not really in the business of banking on women's TKOs, no matter who they are, truth be told. I think Chandler, while again, Nunes has been at a size disadvantage multiple times, I think the difference here is that Chelsea Chandler is going to push the grappling here. And I'm not sold on Josiane Nunes' takedown defense, and I'm really not sold on her offer back. I really do think that when I watch Chelsea Chandler's fights against Stoliarenko, against Norma Dumont, she is going to her grappling. And if she comes in here with that game plan, I think she finds her way on top of Josiane Nunes. And I truth be told, I think she's going to finish her. The fight being at 135 is a little bit worrisome. Both of these girls were just fighting at 145. So I kind of want to see them on the scales before I get to the Chelsea Chandler bet. But I've also told you I looked at maybe trying to find a play on fight doesn't go the distance, because I think there's finishing upside on both sides. So give me the dog, Chelsea Chandler. I think she's going to win by ground and pound TKO, man.
So, yeah, I agree with you that if Chandler winds up on top, that she'll have a significant advantage and she'll be like the bigger girl in there. I definitely expect that. But there's a fight that I feel like I can, draw a lot of parallels to. Kind of the same situation as Chelsea Chandler in here. I felt that if Ramona Pascual could have gotten the Tamirez Vidal fight down, that she could have dominated in the grappling, just being the much thicker girl, better top pressure, all that good stuff. But she got hurt early. She didn't know how to defend herself. And I look at Chelsea Chandler and I see her striking, and she looks super open, man. Like, I do think that there's going to be opportunity for Josiane Nunes to land. Nunes has kind of had some favorable matchups, and skill-wise, I think that this is another kind of gimme fight for her. We've seen in her last fights against Pascal and Zara Farn, probably like an average line of minus 500 for her. And now we're finally getting a playable line against somebody who I think skill-wise doesn't have much for Josiane Nunes outside of being the bigger girl, which sadly is a pretty, important aspect in WMMA. But just size set aside, I do think that she's in for a pretty rough night, and she's going to have to show her toughness to be able to pull this one out. I think that I'm on the Josiane Nunes side. Don't know if I'm going to actually get to it. Moving on to what I feel like probably could have been the co-main event here. It's one of the most slept on fights on this card being buried right in the middle of it. The return of Mike, the Beast Boy Davis taking on Natan Levy. Man, I've got Mike Davis in our fantasy league. I really want to bet him. I do think that he is top 15 level and has been his entire career. It just sucks about the inactivity. With anybody with a lot of inactivity, you don't really know how they're going to look. Mike Davis at this point in his career, he's 31 years old. Normally that's a prime for a lot of people, but there's still going to be ring rust with this much time off. Natan Levy, I don't really know how he's going to lose. I think Mike Davis is a powerhouse. He can throw hard for 15 minutes. And, sadly, he's gone to decision a few times, but he throws with enough power that I think he should be getting a lot of finishes. I just don't think that that's going to happen against Natan Levy. Levy, kind of an odd stylistic matchup for a lot of people. It seems like the only step up that he's had is Rafa Garcia, Breeden, and Valdez not being huge challenges for a lot of people. And the one time that he did against Rafa, he lost a decision. I mean, I think that Mike Davis could be the guy to finish him, but it's tough to play him now because you've got minus 350 on Mike Davis, and then I'm sure his inside the distance going to be juiced, but you have to lay inside the distance on somebody who's never been finished. So for me, it's just a tough fight to play from a betting perspective unless you parlay him. And, while I do think he wins, it's still, I feel like there's some red flags on the Mike Davis side that's keeping me off.
Yeah, there's talk of the injuries and things that have kept him inactive. Not things that you like to hear, but you're right, man. Both of us are big fans of Mike Davis. I think, or like you said, I think the guy's a top 20, top 15 lightweight in the world. Great size. I think the skill set's phenomenal. His striking is very, very clean. His hands are fast. He starts with the body. I know he spent time in Thailand working at Tiger Muay Thai in the past. And, man, you watch those fights with Mason Jones and Sadiq Yusuf. Not only can Mike Davis give it, dude, Mike Davis can take it. He does not mind being in those type of fights. That's what you like to see as well. And then it's like I know a lot of them came against Slava Claus, but he's landed like 14 takedowns or something, 15 takedowns in his last couple fights. Like the guy can wrestle as well. He's got really great cardio, and he's the only one that I see finishing this fight, truth be told. When I look on the Levy side, he is a little bit, he's well-rounded. He's got the karate style. He's got some decent wrestling. But just truth be told, I'm not high on Natan Levy, man. I don't think he really is special in any area of the game. I'm not necessarily sold on his cardio whatsoever. Mike Breeden was putting it on this guy in round 3. And I feel like, he's 5-1 to the decision, which is a little bit worrisome. But that's the only way I see him winning, is potentially squeaking out some type of decision win here. And I just don't think it happens, man. When you look at Natan Levy's record, you see Mike Breeden, you see Genaro Valdez, bad fighters, man. And then you see him try to give him Pete Rodriguez, bad fighter. You see him try to give him Alex Reyes, coming back off of a massive layoff where he was some, surgery gone wrong, kept him out for years. And then he makes the comment with the whole Gaza war situation about the Muslims. Here you go. Here's Mike Davis. The competition got way harder. I think the UFC knows what they're doing. They don't want to put this guy on the mic with what's going on in the world right now. And I think the UFC is given I think they gave him a tough fight, man. I really do like Mike Davis here on Saturday. Main event. I'm sorry. That was a prelim main event. Moving on to the main card. GM3, Gerald Meerschaert taking on Bryan Barberena. I was looking on Bet Online, because not oftentimes do you see minus 200 next to Gerald Meerschaert's name. This guy's been an underdog 15 times in the UFC, only a favorite just 4 times, but he's 4-0 as the favorite with average odds of minus 217. So it's fights like this where GM3 is the minus 200 favorite that he does produce and does come out with a win. And when I look at the fight, when I watch a little tape on it, I kind of see why he's a minus 200, man. He is the natural middleweight. He's got a really nice body kick. His hands really aren't bad, but he's got a really big grappling upside here if he's willing to take this fight to the mat. And what I think is the difference in some of these other guys like Muradov, who's landing all these takedowns on Bryan, like Anthony Ivy's doing the same, Jason Witt. Gerald Meerschaert has submission grappling, very good submission grappling. So I do think if this fight gets to the mat and is there for long extended periods, I feel like Gerald's going to work his way to the back and likely find, the rear naked choke. When I look at Bryan, I see a guy who's been in wars. I see a guy who's lost 11 times already, and he's just kind of stuck between 170 and 185 at this point in his career. He's tough dude. He's durable. He'll put the pressure on you for 15 minutes, and he does have some smooth hands where he'll work the body, but he's not a very dangerous guy. I don't think he's going to go out here and knock out Gerald Meerschaert, just truth be told. So I like Gerald round 2, round 3 submission, man.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Meerschaert by submissions plus money, and I definitely see him getting that done. Barberena at 185 pounds, don't really mix. He was already a flabby 170er, and now he's up at 185. He looked super small against Muradov. I think he's going to look super small here. He's gotten subbed by smaller grapplers in 2 of his last 3 losses. So yeah, I mean, like if this is Meerschaert, it's Meerschaert submission all day in my head. So yeah, I like the Meerschaert bet for sure. Let's see. Moving up to the women's bantamweight, the rematch between Pannie Kianzad taking on Macy Chasson. Neither one of these girls, I mean, like, honestly, I wish they would have moved up the Nunes Chandler fight on the main card instead of this one.
Mike Davis, O'Day Osbourne, any of them, man.
Any fight. McKenna
and Jaquelina are a better fight than this.
Yeah, dude. I mean, this is a really tough watch. The only benefit is that Chasson did finish her at least in their last matchup. I think that we're going to get a little bit more of the same here. I think Chasson's just too big. Sadly, it's just another case of her being a little bit too big, a little bit too physical for Kianzad to really work her game. And I expect Chasson to get the win here. I'm sure as hell not, parlaying a minus 250 women's fight this low caliber. So Chasson's the pick, but this is a stay away fight.
Yeah, not passionate about this fight whatsoever either. First thought is I thought the line could have been wide. Just truth be told, I'm not the biggest fan of Macy. I thought maybe I was letting a little bias get in the way. Once I kind of watched the last couple of her fights, man, she's been sticking to the game plan lately. She's been going to her grappling, which is her, her best skill. 6 takedowns, Dumont, 3 on Irene. If she comes out here in this Pannie fight and sticks to the grappling, we just saw Ketlin Vieira have no resistance to the takedowns when she was fighting Pannie. I do think Macy could likely cover that price tag again. But the thing about Pannie, you see, she's a younger fighter with more experience, something that we've kind of been looking at this year. But I do think she's primarily just a striker, man. I don't think she's very dangerous on the feet. She has very little finishing upside, doesn't mix things up very well. She can be taken down. She can be held against the fence. So, after looking at it a little bit more, watching some fights, I do think Macy is probably the rightful favorite here. But another girl who's really struggled to make 135, I think she's actually missed weight at 145. I'd have to go back and look at that. But it's been a while since if she's ever made the 135 weight. So Macy on the scale is something I feel like you always got to pay attention to before you back her going into her fights. She's going to be the pick for me. The next fight at 145, man, is maybe the best fight on the card. I know there's a lot of love for both sides here with Christian Rodriguez taking on Isaac Dolgarian. And again, a lot of love. I feel like every bet I see on Twitter is for Christian Rodriguez, but I guess everybody who puts their money where their mouth is betting Isaac Dolgarian this week because now the guy is minus 200 on some books. As far as stylistics go, C-Rod does struggle with his takedown defense, man. And he is moving up to 145. And he's probably facing the best wrestler of anybody, 100% the best wrestler of anybody who's been successful taking him down before. And Isaac, man, when Isaac gets on top, he's not looking to just stall, man. He's looking to land his nasty ground and pound to really beat you up. And I do feel like, at least early on in this fight, when these guys get tangled up, I think there's going to be a serious strength difference for the Isaac Dolgarian side. And on the other hand, with C-Rod, this will be the third fight in a row taking on an undefeated guy. He's taken two people's, Cameron Simon and Raul Rosas the last time. So it's a little bit of a prospect killer here in C-Rod. But the guy has gone and missed weight at bantamweight a couple times, forced him to move up here. And that's kind of something that I don't really like seeing is Christian Rodriguez missing weight numerous times. It makes me kind of question his commitment, to the game. How much is he really training, focusing on his nutrition? Because I look at the Bulgarian side, I see in interviews and things this week, like the dude lives in an RV right next to the gym. He lives and breathes fighting right now, getting better. And he just seems a little bit more committed to the game. But it's really hard, especially at this price tag of like minus 185, minus 190s. It's hard to lay that kind of juice on a guy who's never seen a second round in his entire career. And I think that's where the fight really, really starts to get interesting. It's come round 2 and 3. So I'm very excited to sit back and watch this fight. My plan is to potentially get on Christian Rodriguez live. But when I see Isaac Bulgarian winning the first round at a 75% clip, banking that round, kind of leads me to think that he might have another round in him with the takedown defense of Christian Rodriguez. So I'm actually going to side with Isaac Bulgarian pre-fight, but I think the best thing you could do is maybe look to get on C-Rod live here.
So I feel like the UFC is purposefully doing this. C-Rod notorious for making guys or extending fights, and I think that that's exactly what we're trying to see here. If we could just see a full round out of Bulgarian, I think that he'd be a lot more trustworthy moving forward. But I think he's going to have a significant size advantage, strength advantage. The fact that Christian Rodriguez was missing weight at 35, I don't even think that was an option for Bulgarian. He's had catch weights up at 165. So I do think that he's more of a power build than Christian Rodriguez, who is going to have on paper the same height, but I think that he's got a much more slender, longer build than Isaac Bulgarian, and I think that that's not going to serve him well in that early onslaught, the wrestling of Bulgarian. I'm hoping that this fight extends so that we can see more of Bulgarian, but I'm totally with you. The price tag doesn't really match what we've seen up until this point to be able to trust him like that in the UFC. So great fight, great matchup the UFC made so that we can see a little bit more out of Bulgarian. Moving up to the feature bout of the card, Kennedy Nzechukwu taking on Ovin St. Preux. I think that maybe there is not enough prospects at 205. Kennedy being only 31 years old, having the frame that he does. I think that there's a lot of potential for him to be an up-and-coming prospect that can headline some cards in the future. And I think that they're giving him a favorable matchup here against OSP. They're paying OSP a lot of money. He's gotten finished, knocked out on his last 3 losses. And I got to imagine that, that's what's coming here. I imagine Prue is slower. There's no way he's getting any better. And he just looks old, super old in the last few times that I've seen him. So I'm on the Nzechukwu side. Not the highest on Nzechukwu's skill, but I think that he probably has enough to get it done here against 40-year-old OSP. So
yeah, I completely agree, man. I think this is a fight to get Kennedy back on track. Younger, faster, way more durability. The cardio is way better. And I just think he's got the long-range weapons to really keep Ovens at bay and then punish him when he comes in. I don't necessarily see OSP landing anything big. I don't see his grappling working. And the gas tank falls off very badly after round 1. He's going to be 41 years old next month, been on a year layoff. We've seen him dabble up at heavyweight. He missed weight against Jamal Hill. I know he's weighed in at 205 since then, but a year layoff, almost 41. The weight cut doesn't get any easier. I think Kennedy's going to hurt him on the feet, but I actually think Kennedy's going to probably snatch up some type of standing guillotine or some type of choke after he hurts him. So I got a club and sub. I think Kennedy's going to submit him after he hurts him on the feet. But yeah, Kennedy inside the distance for me as well. Go main event, we've got the Ultimate Fighter winner Bryan Battle taking on Ange Loosa at 170. Man, I've been kind of going back and forth on this fight. Battle has been a guy who's pretty impressive. I think at 170, he's forced to take his career, his nutrition, his physical shape a whole lot more serious than he was at 185. He was kind of undersized, a little flabby, could get away with, not running his miles, I guess you could say. And I think at minus 170 or at 170, it forces him to be a lot more disciplined. He's 5-1 in the UFC with 4 finishes as well. Things are going good for him. I like in the Rinat Fakhretdinov fight, like he got dominated pillar to post, but not once did you see Bryan Battle, looking for a way out in that fight. He's tough. I think he's got the striking edge. I think he's a better kickboxer here at range, and he does have pretty good submission skills. And with Ange's durability, I do think if Bryan were to find a way to get this done inside the distance, it's likely going to be by his submission. Ange Loosa, a really good athlete, man, comes from a really good camp in Kill Cliff, great training partners, and the guy's extremely durable. So I don't like laying -150, -160s on Bryan Battle when I do feel like he's got to win a decision here because of the durability of Ange Loosa. I also think that Ange Loosa might be able to get Bryan Battle down a little bit in this fight and maybe just be the better athlete, man. Just truth be told, maybe just out hustle him in some positions. I kind of feel like Bryan Battle -160 looks really good, and a lot of people are on it, but I think it's going to be a little bit trappy. I think the fight plays out pretty close. I'm tempted to bet an Ange Loosa +3.5, something like that. I don't know, man. My gut just tells me that Ange Loosa might find a way to pull this out. So I'm gonna take the underdog, Ange Loosa, in the co-main event.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I was actually going to get there, but I certainly like the value on the Loosa side. Battle giving up the takedowns that he has in the past doesn't bode well with Loosa, who is known to mix in some of the grappling whenever he's in a fight. I think that Loosa also has some pretty decent power, and Battle does seem to be a little bit hittable. The fights that Battle has won, I bet him in the Gabe Green fight, but that was all-time bad fight IQ right there.
Yeah.
AJ Fletcher, questionable UFC caliber. Takashi Sato, definitely on the tail end of his career at that point. Tresean Gore, Gilbert Urbina. None of the fights are really aging that well. And the one time that we have seen him lose against Rinat Fakhretdinov, he's dominated more or less. And I feel like this is finally a guy who is a great test for Bryan Battle. So I see it as more of a 50-50 fight, which means that I might have to bet Loosa, but I wouldn't be necessarily happy about it because I don't rate him highly as a fighter either. Again, this is one of those cards where it's just like neither side looks great, so the plus money usually makes more sense when you're looking at it. Moving on to the main event in the heavyweight division, Tai Tuivasa taking on Marcin Tybura. Tybura is one of those guys that I feel like really can take over a fight if he can extend it, especially when he's up against power punchers. In this particular matchup, though, them being inside the apex, the cage is much smaller. He has even less room for movement to kind of get his back off the cage. And I think early Tuivasa's pressure is going to be pretty difficult for Tybura to avoid. And, I certainly think that he's a better MMA fighter. I think if it was a, I don't really know how to describe it. If it was a wrestling match, a grappling match, and a striking match, Tybura would win 2 out of those 3. But I think that Tuivasa, this smaller ring is to his benefit. He'll probably back him up against the cage and find a knockout shot. Tybura, he likes to cover up. Tuivasa does really well with landing his uppercuts, and I think that that'll probably be there. And Tybura is going to kind of fold. Tuivasa's had some really tough matchups in his last few, and I think we're kind of getting him at a decent price tag, whereas if those 3 fights hadn't happened and this fight was scheduled, he'd probably be closer to a 2-1 favorite. So yeah, I lean Tuivasa. I think that he'll get it done inside the distance, so maybe that's a way to look at it if you're looking for a better price. Just neither one of these guys are 5-round fighters in my head. Tybura, certainly the more cardio reliable of the two, but Tuivasa, I think, will get it done. And this is certainly like a really nice bounce back spot after the Sirogan, Pavlovich, and Volkov matchups. Right.
Yeah, man. I'd have to go back and look, but not typically do you get main events where guys are both coming off of finished losses. I know the UFC was kind of searching for a main event here, but, Tai Tuivasa, 3 losses in a row, Marcin, 1 loss in a row, and here they are headlining the card. So that was just something that kind of stuck out to me a little bit there. I kind of feel the way you do. Tai Tuivasa's super live to bonk him and to finish him, in the first round and a half. Marcin's been knocked out 5 times. And early in this fight, he is going to be at a speed disadvantage really early. And I think you made a big point about the small cage. Tai being able to cut him off easier, not have to track him down as much. Calf kick will keep him stationary. And his hands are pretty deceptively fast, truth be told. As the fight progresses, though, I do think it really starts to swing in the favor of Marcin, like you said. I do think he's a guy, you kind of broke it down. He has got way more ways to win this fight. He can outpoint him on the feet. He can wrestle him. He can win a decision. I think he holds all of the decision equity, which was plus 1,000 earlier in the week there. I think as we get to rounds 3 through 5, if we're still there, I do think the tides of the fight will start to swing heavily. When I look at Tuivasa, man, there's always the pass for the stiff level of competition that he fought. Dude, I mean, these guys put a whooping on him. Like, Cyril Gane hurt him to the body. Cyril Gane put him out on the feet. Like, that counter shot Cyril Gane knocked him down with is one of the cleanest counter shots ever. When he stands up after getting knocked out by Pavlovich, he looks messed up, dude. He is busted up. At 30, it really kind of shocked me that Tai Tuivasa was only 30 years old. I was expecting like a 34 or 35. He's only 30 years old. But I do think he's kind of already approaching the tail end of that career, man. I just feel like mentally and physically he's just not looking like the Tai Tuivasa of the past. You see him on wrestling as well, doing shoeies like 2 weeks ago. Then that video came out today of his meniscus issue that he had a few weeks back that they pulled him off of 298 to put him here. There's a couple red flags that kind of are keeping me off the Tai Tuivasa side. It's kind of like the Christian Rodriguez. I'm kind of looking to get in on this one live. I think if Marcin has not been knocked out in rounds 1 or 2, you will get better than plus 105, better than plus 110. And so I think pre-fight, I'm probably not going to have any action unless I can find a way to get plus money on like a Tai knockout and a Marcin money line, something if I could, figure out a way to arb and make money regardless, because I do feel like the fight's pretty binary on how I see it playing out. But yeah.
I don't see this fight going 5 rounds though, right?
I don't. No, I don't.
And if Tybura does start to have success, I was doing the tape on his fight today. He doesn't look for the sub. Like that's not in his game plan at all. And I feel like, Tuivasa being as thick as he is a tougher sub. And the Tybura TKO money at plus like 3-1 or something. I do like, because I don't see this going to decision. And I do think that that's his path to victory is getting him down, getting in a ground and pound position and finishing it that way, which he has a ton of times in the past as well.
Yeah, that's a very good note, man. This is a tough fight for me because originally I kind of wanted to bet Marcin, but I kind of want a better number because I do think he's playing with fire really early in this fight. And I feel like maybe the most likely outcome is a Tai Tuivasa early knockout in the Apex cage. That's a big point to bring up. Nice point, man. That's 13 fights after 14 last week going down at the Apex. So like you said at the beginning, always a fan of just a filler fight card for us to bet on, for us to watch versus nothing. So won't hear any complaints from me. I actually think we're gonna see a lot of finishes here on Saturday. I appreciate you guys hanging out with us as always. We'll be back next week for next week's fight card.
Peace.